Welcome to the HU Move Makers podcast, where we highlight folks that are blazing the trail and making moves in Howard culture. Hello and welcome to a very special edition of the Go Fish Village podcast. It's the money edition. I'm your host, Joshua Mercer, founder of Go Fish Village, also a realtor with Chicago Premier Real Estate. Today we got a special guest, managing partner, Hunken Ewing Financial Group, four-time qualifier, Guardians Leader Club, $1 Million Roundtable, got his bachelor's from Southern Illinois, Edwardsville. That's the nerdy one. That's not the party one. Got his MBA from Howard University, American College of Financial Services, board member of the Howard University School of Business, man of excellence, Chicago Defender, 2015, named one of Howard University's most prominent business school alumni in 2010. As a matter of fact, he did a keynote speech for Howard University School of Business back in 2018. And he's been raising money like crazy for the school. It's probably going to be the Ewing School of Business in a couple years before it's all said and done. Formula One racer, wine enthusiast. We got Van Ewing. What's up, Van?
Hey, what's going on, Joshua? How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. So how does one do Formula One racing globally, man?
Well, we're just a big fan, right? And it's a great time to be a fan, right? So, given everything that's going on, in the world, and especially a lot of things going on in the U.S., if we look at it, the lead Formula One racer is Lewis Hamilton, a man of color that grew up in the UK. They came from, modest beginnings, and he's out there leading it. So, I have a 3.5-year-old son who sits and watches Formula One, with me. I can't think of a better time for him to be sitting watching Formula One due to, a brother, is the all-time leading racer for Formula One. But no, it's something that I got into when I used to live over in the UK and everything, and it's pretty exciting stuff. So, yeah.
So, what's like the most interesting place you've been to watch a race at since you because to watch Formula One racing, it's one of those sports. It's not like Hawthorne racetrack. Well, we're talking about a global sport, man, where you got to keep up with.
I've been over to Montreal, Silverstone over in London is very interesting. The one down in Austin. It's a lot more that, need to get to. I used to spend a lot of time over in Singapore, but I've yet to be to that, yet to travel to that one yet. But, right now things are kind of paused. But as my oldest son gets a little bit older, here in a year or two, the family is going to, start getting back on track to going to visit Formula One. So, it's all about exposure, taking in a little bit different things, right? So
yeah. So, and then you're a wine enthusiast too, right? So
Napa
Valley.
Napa Valley, and the Bordeaux region and everything. And
I gotta Google these places, man. What are these places, man? The Bordeaux region.
Hey, man, that's where wine began, brother. That's what they call the the old region of wine. But it's just something I love. The great thing, it's like going to Howard. How you go, you hang out, you like being around Howard people, great conversations. You're really in touch. I think a bottle of wine allows individuals to sit around and really get to know each other, have deep conversations, and just over time and just gotten more into it. And, we do a lot of collecting of, wine, here at our house. So if anyone ever comes over to visit, the first thing we're doing is, opening up some, sharing and getting some conversations going on.
So no Bones Farm in your house, huh?
Hey, I remember those days, brother. I remember those days. So I haven't had any in a while, but I guess that was my humble beginnings back in undergrad.
Yeah. So speaking of beginnings, man, walk me through your journey through the C-suite, man, because George was a bit of an interesting one after you, because I know you didn't start at Howard for undergrad, but you got your MBA from Howard, and then I think you worked at Chevron later on after that. So tell me about your journey to the C-suite.
No. I mean, I think it's a guy who was born in Southern Illinois, formative years in Central Illinois, down in Champaign. Made a decision. I have a sister that's 51 weeks younger than me, and parents who had modest means. And I did want to go to, believe it or not, I did want to go to Howard as undergrad, but family just wasn't in a position to really make it work with two kids who were at similar ages. So we made the decision that we went down to SIU, and my sister did finish at Carbondale. I finished up at Edwardsville. Afterwards, graduating, was able to get a position at Southwest Airlines that ended up leading to Wall Street. And once you're there at on Wall Street, it was like you had to go back and get a basically an advanced degree, which was an MBA. And while accepted at other prestigious business schools, my whole mantra was I wanted to fulfill a dream that I had, and that was going to Howard. So I didn't take the traditional route of going to Howard undergrad. I did go to the business school, which was probably some of the finest 2 years of my life, and the individuals that I met along the way are still friends. But Howard really helped promote me as far as I was president of our graduate student business school. One of the leading graduates there came out, got into a special program at what was Texaco, now Chevron, what they call the Executive Business Analyst Program, which allowed me to work with all the executives there and work my way up, and eventually doing mergers and acquisitions and strategic initiatives, and got to travel the world and do all those things over the 5.5 years I was there. And then my path just kind of changed.
But something interesting happened, right? At when you were at Texaco, a lot of changes were taking place, and corporately, and I guess in just how companies were doing things.
Yeah, I mean, so at Texaco, I think it happened a little bit before I got there. So Texaco at the board had gotten involved in some comments that some of the board members, obviously, back in the day, it's still, still true to this day, not a lot of diversity on the board. They had, I don't remember the exact comments, but they had made some, different comments, about, black beings, or, referring to, African-American individuals that actually came out, in the public. When it was, they went through, a lawsuit, with the government, and was sued by individuals, which forced Texaco to kind of look at their hiring practices. And obviously, if you get caught up in something like that, which is back in the 90s, back then, they were forced to have a diversity board and do diverse hiring. So where's the first place you call where they know, intellectual, property and talent? Howard University, right? So I actually was not the first one. There was a gentleman before me, Robert Poindexter, was a year before me. He was the first one who actually went to Texaco, but he went to the finance department. During that period of time, they created, not just for African Americans, but through a broad range of all individuals throughout globally, they created an executive business analyst program. I was one of the first ones who entered that program in 1998. So actually, not going back to Wall Street, I chose to enter that program because the gentleman who actually ended up being the CEO of Texaco, Glenn Tilton, who ultimately ran United Airlines here in Chicago as CEO, he was the one that had the conversations like, hey, why go to Wall Street? Come to Texaco and I'll show you the world, the travel to learn how to, really run a business versus just investing in a business. And that's why I actually ended up choosing, Texaco. And I was one of two individuals, two African Americans, who actually was in that program that came in 1998.
Wow. So would you say that was like a big turning point for you in your career?
Yeah, I would say just because, you can go back to Wall Street, and I don't think that, I probably would have moved, up the way that I did, where going to Texaco and being exposed to a lot of different things from trading to M&A to just auditing. It was a management rotational program, and then just the exposure to, all the way up to the CEO, and having that knowledge sitting in the rooms where a lot of those deals were being constructed, what was going on, being mentored by those individuals, really, set the stage for, what I would call fast growth in development, in the C-suite.
So at this point, you're interacting with Glenn, I guess, on a day-to-day basis?
I would say on a day-to-day basis, but weekly. You know how it is. Everybody's traveling, you're doing your own thing, but you definitely, coming apart.
I don't know how it is.
Well, yeah. So I probably, believe it or not, I probably had more interaction with Deval Patrick, who was the general counsel at the time, who ended up becoming the governor of Massachusetts. He was probably, Glenn was definitely being the CEO, but how much time does a CEO have, even though we spent a lot of time with Glenn, but used to travel and everything with Deval and everything. So I would say his leadership, and a gentleman that actually looks like me in a world where it was still very few of us in big oil, and still very few of us in large integrated oil companies. I would say that Deval Patrick probably had more profound impact on me as growing as a young African-American professional.
Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. What was your mindset like at this point? Were you aware of how great an opportunity this was, or you were just naturally hard worker? Like, were you being intentional about your career?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of both. From a guy who came from not a lot of exposure, got caught up really quick. I think a lot of that, though, really happened at Howard, just really understanding even more that's out there. The great thing about Howard, right, is people come from all over, right? Globally to come to the school and everything. Where you on Wall Street, I think things are just kind of in a little bit of a pocket, typically just, the Ivy League schools and everything, where Howard had a little bit of an adjustment where people came globally. And then, when we get to a large integrated oil company like a Texaco, which is once again now Chevron, definitely exposure, quickly that you had to be on your A game, right? If you wanted to stay where you were, believe me, young 20-year-olds coming in with the exposure that we have, and people been there 20, 25 years, they didn't like us coming into the program, being exposed to the senior management the way that we were, and the other individuals had been there like 20, 25 years. So you had to learn how to handle that, help you kind of grow and mature a little bit faster professionally.
So what were some of the projects that you were working on and things that you were exposed to when you were there?
Yeah, wow, that's that's diverse from, working on new projects and, ventures from, Southeast Asia and how they intertwine back with the company here in the, here in the US to, power generation that, worked on a project from, Guatemala all the way down to, Panama, with other, large oil companies. So, there was always collaboration. To me, it's not like one project just, sticks out. One is because it's been so long ago, but it was really, understanding the collaboration of helping all organizations get what they want. But at the end of the day, it was about execution. And can you bring deals in? Can you get them closed? And can you bring value to the bottom line? And that's the way that you move up. At the end of the day, if you can produce and if you can execute, what I learned a long time ago is all the way at the top, they looking at the green. They looking at how much money can be made. So I'm not going to say people become colorblind, because that's not true, because people of color like us, We still got a long way to go, but there are people out there making inroads and everything. But once you get there, it's all about execution and are you making people money?
So was your position one that generated revenue?
Oh yeah. You don't want to be an employee that's on the expense side. You want to be on the revenue generating side. I still, in the business I run today, I always tell individuals is like, analysts are a dime a dozen. You need them, but that's overhead. You want people who can do new business development, who can go out there, build relationships, generate revenue. You want to be on the revenue generating side. Yeah. Always.
Yeah. No, that's true. I mean, I've been in that world for 8-10 years now, and we see with COVID, which jobs are the ones to fall first. It's the ones that's not producing money, unfortunately. So you're in this world, man. You were in Wall Street, you school of B. Now you're in this world where you have access to top leadership at Texaco, which is, oil industry at this point is huge. A lot of money in oil, not a lot of African Americans in that field. Were you at the point now where you were like negotiating your salary? And, if you were, like, what are some tips that you would give? Because when you're able to, like, when you're in a revenue generating position, I'm sure you're like, okay, I'm bringing in a ton of money and adding a lot of value. But I'm just asking, just in general, were you in a position where you were negotiating your own salary?
Well, no, I mean, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I think in any large corporation, things are based off of positions. Like, yeah, you're coming up for, annual reviews. You're trying to negotiate bonuses and you're trying to get to a certain salary. But how, the way it is like, hey, you're in one position, you're trying to move to the next position. You're trying to navigate like, hey, what's my next move? Or what's another business unit that I could take over, that I could run, that's going to put you, in a more high profile, position. So I think it's more about navigating, what's the next move, right? Because, anything in corporate America, it's the position. You're getting paid based on the position. And yeah, there might be bonuses, but the only way that you continuously, move forward is, once again, creating value and learning how to move. And the one thing that I always learn, when you take on another leadership position in corporate America, always bring in the auditors right behind you, because the individual who left, you want to make sure you clean up his or her stuff so it's not left for you, especially if, it's a house of cards or something like that. Because a lot of people do things that they know they're in a position for only a year or two, and it might not be what it seems. So what I quickly learned is if you took over a position, make sure the internal auditors are coming in, making sure everything is legit and stuff, because you don't want to be left with someone else's, bad business practices.
So in terms of responsibility while you were there, like what would you say your biggest responsibility was in terms of the impact to the bottom line?
I mean, I think it was just more strategic, focus and execution. Any position that you're in leadership, right? You got to lead people, and you try to get the most out of individuals and help individuals believe that if they do a good job, that there's going to be opportunity. And what I've learned, for a long time, if you can help other individuals, produce at a high level and execute where they're getting opportunities, ultimately you're going to get your opportunities, right? Because people, especially in corporate America or anything, it doesn't even have to be corporate America. People are looking for leaders. Not everybody are leaders. Not everybody's willing to help everybody. But I learned a long time ago, if you could help people get what they want and help them execute, ultimately you will you'll get what you want.
Did you ever feel, because you said that there were people that have been on the job for 20 years and you were in your 20s coming on, did you ever have impostor syndrome coming in there? Like what?
Impostor syndrome?
Yep. Yeah. Are you familiar with that?
No. What is that?
So basically,
enlighten me.
Okay. So basically, and I have a lot of guests that come and talk about this, but imposter syndrome is it's when you get to a certain level and you look around and you're around all these other accomplished people and you doubt your own skills or accomplishments, you kind of feel like you don't belong internally. You're not expressing that to other people, but it's kind of like psyching yourself out.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, that's a great question. I never heard the imposter syndrome, so I got to use that. So thanks, Josh. I like that.
That means you've been on top for a long time.
No. So, I mean, I think there's a little bit of that, but I look at things as, man, I came from SIU, state school. I'm not saying that SIU is not a good, quality education. But when you're going up against other individuals for Ivy Leagues and the schools that I did not go to in the beginning, I think I was very aware that my skill sets were probably not the same of what I learned along the way. So I knew I was going to have to work hard, right? And if it took me staying up to 2 or 3 in the clock, learning on the sales spreadsheet or preparing for something, that was okay. I think coming through Howard, helped me build a little bit more relationships, probably feel a little bit more comfortable in my skin. And then moving forward, I was just always a guy who asked a lot of questions and everything. And I think I was, I just think I was lucky that a lot of top individuals probably saw a little bit of that in me, and they were always willing to help me. Now I've seen other people who looked like me, and I think they were just as good, and they didn't get the same opportunity. I've definitely seen that a lot. So I just consider myself just being blessed along the way. But I guess, there's parts of me who ended up in different places, like, traveling the world. I was like, man, a guy that was born in Cairo, Illinois, in Alexander County, which is the poorest county in all the state of Illinois. And, sitting here where I am, what I'm doing. I mean, yeah, a lot of times I had to pinch myself and everything. But I guess, through my upbringing and background, I think that I always thought that I belonged. I just knew that I had to work a little bit harder, and I was willing to work harder. So I didn't go in and try to pretend to be something that I wasn't, because I know a lot of people don't ask a lot of questions because they view that as someone's going to look at them as though they're not that smart. I always looked at it, I'm going to ask a lot of questions. I'm going to ask these individuals, and I'm always going to try to put myself in a position that will create opportunities for myself. So that's kind of how I always, that was always my approach.
No, I love that. I love that. And see, like, and sometimes people don't feel like you said, they don't feel comfortable because it's like you making yourself vulnerable, and you don't want people to think that, you don't even know the answer to that. But in reality, everybody probably has that same question. And when you ask that question, it makes it seem like you're more engaged and more proactive, because I know when I hire folks on and they ask good questions, I'm like, man, thank you for asking that question, versus just guessing when you get on the job. How did you deal with the pressures of, being like one of the only guys that one of the only brothers in a firm like that? Because a lot of times, like, you being from SIU, not SIU, but from Carroll, Illinois, humble beginnings, it's easy to be like, man, one day when I get there, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. But then when you get there, it's like, oh, man, I got to keep up this brand of Van Ewing up. You know what I'm saying? Like, they used to me going hard and being excellent. How did you deal with the pressures of, of being Van Ewing?
Yeah, I mean, I think once again, I do believe that, while my parents and immediate friends hadn't been exposed to that, I think I still grew up in a very supportive environment that I was able to reach back up to a lot of people, whether it was high school friends, the individuals that I went to Howard with, but also, family, man, and my siblings. That was a good supportive group. And I do believe, once again, that I was put in a situation that I was very lucky that the cohorts that I went through, the leadership programs, the executive, business analyst leadership program that I went through at Texaco, it was 12 of us. We were very supportive. A lot of those guys I'm still friends with today. One of my best friends, who's the godfather of My oldest son, who's over in almighty Kakistan, he still works for Chevron. Man, we all remain good friends. And a lot of these guys are, guys who live around the world, who still, doing big things, whether it's, investment management, running business units of large international, companies and everything. We still all remain very close and everything. And we get on Zoom calls, I know this is like a podcast, but we get on Zoom calls and stay in touch. I was just with a couple of my high school buddies that I played basketball with the Tuesday right before Thanksgiving. And we all were on there on a Zoom call. And then I'm doing something on December the 22nd, where I'm sending out some of these same people, like bottles of wine from Brown Estate, which is an African-American owned Napa Valley. And Josh's like, hey, what about me? Sending the wine, and we're going to jump on here. And I'm going to walk them through that, more about the wine, but it's a way of staying in contact. Look, man, I think it's all about having a good foundation and being around good, positive people that believe in you. And we all know there's going to be speed bumps in life, but there's going to be huge opportunities, and you got to be prepared for all of them. And I think a lot of that comes from the foundation, the support, and the people that you keep yourself around.
So if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready.
There you go, brother. you know that. Hey, brother. Hey, man. I remember meeting you, and you being a young guy who's coming out of Howard. I still remember when I ran New York Life. You came over to my office, and you were just asking a lot of questions and everything. And I remember when you were getting into Allstate, and I still watch you from afar, man. The how you bring people together. Where's that Howard homecoming? Whether it's here in Chicago, the podcast that you're doing, you're building out, real estate. I look at you and, hey, man, I can't think of a better young guy who has, a young son, a young daughter, a beautiful wife. You shouldn't lead it by example, man. So, a guy that's like,
hey, I learned from the best, man. I learned from the best. I remember coming to that office, that New York Life office on the 100th floor, man, overlooking the lake, man. I remember that. I remember that receptionist, man, who stopped me on my tracks. I remember that, yeah. So you pivot, you leave Texaco or Chevron Corp, and you go to an entirely new industry. Takes a lot of intestinal fortitude to leave a great situation, let alone leave a situation like that to an entirely different industry. What was the reason for that?
Man,
other than the money.
Hey, man, it wasn't. Hey, I wouldn't say it was money in the beginning when I left. It was it was wanting to be on a journey where I could create my own opportunities to make more money down the road, and I wanted to own my own business. And I just started looking around, and it was more financial services. And when I first went to, a company like New York Life, it wasn't actually to get into management. It was kind of build that out. And I thought all roads would lead back to New York. Well, I ended up getting married, and, due to my background, I quickly got into management at New York Life, which, kind of led me to the top role, managing partner, the managing partner in the field in New York Life. Within 2 years of getting there, which I had a phenomenal run there. It was great, but what I quickly even realized with New York Life, that was still more corporate, than what I'm doing now. But yeah, it was literally just, I got tired of traveling, Josh. I mean, when you sit on a plane, at a large integrated oil company like I was, living out of the country, traveling all the time. I don't know, it starts to get old. You kind of want, at least me, started wanting to get settled down. I know people who love it, who love traveling. Like my best friend, this dude, like he moves to countries, Mark, like every 2 years, with his family. I wasn't built that way. That's not, that's kind of not me.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just wanted more control, and that's what led me to financial services and everything.
So what were some of the challenges that you ran into with kind of creating this new career path for yourself? Because I know that when you because I was interested. What I was impressed by, you was like, yeah, I don't sell. I build a team. I thought that was cool because in my role, I build a team. I got to sell. I don't know what the model is in New York Life, but it was certainly in the business versus working on the business type of model. So what were some of the challenges for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest challenge on the transition was really being in the corporate America, then going out trying to build something yourself. I'm not from Chicago, so you're trying to build a business where when I was starting off, I had to build my business with mainly people on the East Coast from that New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area, and that DC, Virginia, Maryland area. That's where most of my business had to come from. Maybe that is why I went into management. I'm like, man, this is, flying back and forth the planes. We didn't have all the virtual stuff that we have now that makes business a lot easier, where you can just, wake up and I can come up to my, my home office and stuff like that we're sitting in right now. But I would say that would be that was actually the largest challenge, being a little bit more humble. You come in from a place where everybody did every single thing for you, being a big oil, riding on the private jets, our first class, everything being taken care of for you, to come in like, man, you start looking in the mirror, it's like, it's all on you. And you got to pick up the telephone, you got to build some other different type of relationships, and you got to actually ask people, to do business with you. And so, that was it. But, I quickly transitioned because you got to eat, you got to put food on the table, right? So, and then ultimately you got to look at it as like, look, if all these other people are successful, then why not me? And if they're successful, I can go beyond their success. But you're right, I quickly got in and I quickly realized, I'm like, I'm not from Chicago, but what I can talk about is my background, my experience, and I can recruit people to this opportunity. Let me sell in a different type of way. So my selling was creating different opportunities for people. And as kind of mentioned before, if you could help other people have success, ultimately it'll bring you success. And that's what helped me get to managing partner and running New York Life.
Wow. So you were originally selling when you went to New York Life?
Yeah. I sold for about a year and a half. Yeah.
Wow, man. Yeah. Selling is tough.
It can be, but individuals, man. Hey, man, every household is different. Yeah. And there's many different personalities in that one household.
Yeah. No, it's tough, man. I've been doing it for 8 years now, and but it's rewarding when it works out. But it's sometimes the stress of it all is tough. But so you do that. You're in that role and you build your team. How big did your team grow?
Man, we had a huge team. We took something that was in Schaumburg, Deerfield, and we didn't have anything established downtown. So we took an office that didn't have anything downtown and built downtown to one of the largest agencies throughout the whole New York Life system. So when we got into that, man, it's like we probably took, something that used to be like out of 120, what they call general offices in New York Life, it was probably like 76. We took it all the way up to like 7. Wow. We grew something that was probably about, 50 advisors up to, I don't remember. It was approaching 200, but like I said, we went from out of 120 general offices, we were 76. We gotten up to as large as 7 and 8. So we had phenomenal growth in my 8 years of running as the top individual managing partner running New York Life here in Chicago. So it was a good run. It was a run that got boring because at the end of the day, it wasn't mine, meaning that New York Life was more of a corporate, structure where still things called from 51 Madison Avenue in New York and, not here in Chicago. So, so I enjoyed my time there, taught me a lot, but, ultimately it was time to move on.
So, but when you had a title of partner, I mean, is that title sometimes misleading? To the outside looking in, it means like partner means like you got equity in the business. I didn't
have equity in the New York Life business. Yeah. The one now, but In New York Life, no, it's a corporate title. Like, so yeah, so I guess you would be, right, Josh. All I meant was, managing partner was the leading manager, in the area of running this agency. But yeah, hey brother, it wasn't any equity. You made good money, but no.
Yeah.
And New York Life is a mutual company, so it's not publicly traded. So yeah, no.
I see. Yeah. So yeah, you guys are owned by the policyholders.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So it seems like you're the master at knowing when it's time to bounce. You know what I'm saying? Like you kind of a few steps ahead, because really people don't leave great situations. You know what I mean? You kind of like, okay, it's time to move on to the next thing. And so just when we thought you couldn't outdo yourself, you joined Hunken Financial Group, and they've been around since 1940, and now it's Hunken Ewing Financial Group. And when I look them up online, it's clearly Hunken Ewing Financial Group. So talk to me about that transition, and because sometimes when you are going from, I guess, especially in the insurance field or financial services, you basically go into a competitor, even though it's a smaller boutique operation. It's, that's not easy either. It's a risk there. So talk to me about that transition.
Yeah. Once again, there's a lot of huge parts of me who, once again, that's, timing has just been right. And while you say, hey, the master of knowing when to leave, I think these things are done, really years in advance, meaning that, I would say in 2012 is when I had already originally started having original thoughts that it might be time for me to depart. The opportunity that I was in New York Life, while it was good, once again, it's kind of like when you were saying, hey, you got these titles, seems like you own her. It's like, you look, yeah, I mean, they paying me great, I'm working and stuff like that, but, I still don't have ownership, and, just due to some relationships that, I have in the industry. I served on a couple boards with Scott Hunken, and, timing, was right, They had been around at that time we started talking. They've been around 75 years, but they were operating in a different aspect, meaning they were a brokerage operation within the Guardian and Park Avenue Securities, which was more what we call a career professional outfit, where you bring in advisors and build them up that way. So they were kind of like this square peg trying to put into a round hole. They obviously very, very successful. 3 generations family been in it. They were doing well. They didn't have to have a Van Ewing come in, and the Hunken family would have still been okay. But I think we start having conversations of like, hey, let's take advantage of the opportunity here. And Guardian was, like I said, a career outfit. Hey, you know how to recruit, you know how to build. We know how to do the brokerage. We're running a business. Let's bring these talents together and see if we can grow this larger together. Now, there's good and bad with that, right? And I think you brought that kind of up. There's risk, meaning that, hey, one, they're known as just this brokerage operation, not really recruiting, not really bringing people in, giving people opportunity to grow as far as advisors. So if an established advisor, are you brand new? Why would you want to come to this unit that's been doing something else? At the other side, they got this brokerage operation, and it's like, it's not really set up to do a career. So how can we all come together? And really what we sat down and spoke about is like, look, we want to build on what's positive about both individuals. These guys are really good at brokerage. They know advanced planning. They know the business community. They deal with brokers all over the country, over 1,000 brokers. What I brought to the table is I know investment management. I know how to recruit and how to build a culture. How can we build that together? And that's kind of what led to the opportunity. And unlike the other opportunities that I've been involved in, I actually have equity. My name's on the plate, and hey, I'm not building something just for myself, but for these two young boys, that I have, and a lot of that has to do with, I was married before, I'm on my second marriage, and my wife Elizabeth, who basically comes from a family where a father was pretty much a pioneer in investment management and what he did with Holland Capital, Lou Holland, and while we were going through this opportunity, I was at New York Life and looking at this opportunity. It was a lot of sitting down having conversations with, at the time, my fiance, Elizabeth, and I can't, here's someone who's very supportive, like, hey, if anybody can make this change, make this move, and make it work, it was her. And she still, remains, my best supporter, really, the rock, that allows me to go out and do what I do, to build this business, that I am with the Hunken family. And so, but as you say, everything still has challenges, right? So you're dealing with those, but you pull from all your experiences in the past, and you just take on that journey and do the best that you can. And so far, we're having a lot of success and everything.
So is this a situation where, and that's a great story, by the way, having that support system, it makes tough decisions easier when you have the support of people who love you and want the best for you, for sure. And also when you have purpose, when you have the purpose of, okay, I got two boys, or I want to grow a family, I want to leave a legacy, it's not so much about money, because now you're putting yourself out there, and it's a riskier proposition. Did you have to buy in to the organization? Yeah. Right. Yeah. So now you got to buy in, and we're talking about a buy-in on an organization that has been around a significant amount of time. So there's a lot of risk there, as you know, from being in sales and service. So you get started. So I do want to ask, man, because I'm on the website. I see one brother, two brothers. I mean, how are you able to successfully navigate? Because people do business with people who they like, know, and trust. And for me, sales, I reach out to my people who happen to be, mostly Black, or, Howard grads, or, professionals that I know. But it seems like you coming into a culture that, at least from the leadership that I see, it doesn't look like us. And you go right to, you're right at managing principal and co-general agent, like you at the top. How much of that played in your mind when you were making this transition?
It didn't, because in New York Life, when I ran New York Life at the time, in New York Life, I was the only African American managing partner who had the top spot. So
wow,
I've been used to that.
So what's the secret, man? What's the secret? Man. How do you do it? How do you do it, man?
Hey man, timing. Lucky brother. Hey man, I don't know, man. It's just it's been just being prepared at the right time. But I say it all comes down to a little bit of luck. I was raised to be conscious of who I was, to understand that I'm an African American male, and people are going to look at me a lot different. But I also realized quickly in life and in business, if you can go out there and execute, and you can make other people money, they might not overlook the color of your skin, but they're gonna look at it a little bit different.
Keep you around.
And if you're around, you know how it is. If you stay around long enough, you'll be okay. So ultimately it comes down to building a brand, right? And we both associate with Howard. Howard is a brand. You can go anywhere in the world, and Howard is a brand, right? And and people are going to know that brand. So my whole thing is that, I always wanted to, uphold my brand. And, my brand is, something that, a guy that's going to execute, a guy that can, work with anyone, don't really, I don't really care, what color you are. It's all about production, and execution. And hey, if you come work with me, I'm gonna help you get what you want. And I want to be around good people. Family. Family is very important. And in the global world that we work in, you gotta have all different type of people around you to be successful. And that's fundamentally what I believe. So I'm not going to say that I don't see color, because I do see color, but I also look at it and know that if I can build relationships, that's going to be able to help.
Absolutely.
So you try to find that common ground, right, among individuals and stuff. Good people like to hang out with good people.
No, that's interesting. So, okay, so when you start, what was it like? What was the recruit? How did the conversation get going? That, okay, this is something that I'm gonna do. Were you recruited?
No, we've known each other, because when I was at New York Life, some of our advisors, they sold through Hunken, the Guardian product, we call disability, and some advanced, what we call, executive cases and everything on planning. So we've worked with them before, but, Scott and I, have a lot of people in common. I have other people in the industry that, I share with them, that, maybe not right now, but if the right opportunity came up, I would be looking to, move forward, ultimately down the road, that I want ownership. I want to be able to buy into something or build something that's going to be mine. And, I think a couple of those people kind of put, me and the Hunken family together. And then as we were going through that, which was almost a 5-month exercise to ensure that this was going to be the right thing, our families meeting, meeting everyone and stuff like that, said to ensure that this was going to be, the right journey, for us, because, it didn't have to go that route, but I thought, given, where we were, my wife is from, the Chicago area. There was times that I thought that, maybe my best opportunities was moving back to the East Coast. And my wife was like, hey, we can do that. But all roads lead back to Chicago. If we're going to be having a family, I need to have my siblings and my mom, all involved. That's very, very important to me and everything. So, when we were making that decision on next moves, we fundamentally kind of realized that, hey, we're going to go into a business opportunity. Probably that business opportunity, at least at the beginning or at minimum, probably needs to be here in the Chicago area. And that's kind of what led to this and everything.
So, okay, so, and it's in 5 months. That's a long time. So a lot of that is negotiation too, right? Like responsibilities and expectations.
Yeah, but you say 5 months is a long time. I think 5 months is a short time if you're looking to do something for a long time. Meaning that, it's like a marriage, right? You got to get in here and see who you kind of marry, who you marry, who's the foundation, what's their beliefs, are these good individuals? It has not so much to do about the organization. It's about the individuals who are actually running the organization right now, because that's it. And is this going to be the right opportunity for you? Because I could be as talented as I want to be, but if the organization is not going to support that and be behind how we're trying to move forward, I don't think that would have been a good strategic move. And I think over the 5 months, while you never know 100%, I think what Les and I realized with Scott Hunken and Chris Hunken and their families is that these are good guys who have solid family beliefs, that this is a family business, and they're giving me the opportunity to come join their family and grow. And ultimately, I think that they made that decision on themselves, right? Because while I'm making the decision, they're also looking at my family as well. And they're thinking like, hey, this is a guy that we can grow with. It might be worth merging families, together, and that us coming together, we can build something greater than what we already have on the individual sides, right? So I think, I ultimately believe that's been there. And those guys from my engagement party to the wedding, to my oldest son being baptized, to everything. Scott Hunken has been there every step, along the way. And Howard was, the business school is going to be given their 50th anniversary, which has been deferred to 2021, but it's supposed to be in 2020. He and his family was committed to coming out to hang out at Howard to understand everything that's going on. So I think that's the type of relationship. His daughter is actually, he and my wife, his daughter and my wife are in the same sorority up in Madison. She joined. So my wife and my wife's older brother, Louis Jr., actually wrote his second daughter recommendations to get into Madison. And then Les also wrote a recommendation for her to help get in sorority. So when I'm saying that, it goes deeper than just being business partners, right? I mean, in a family type, business like this and everything. And I say family, yeah, I'm not the Hunkins, but I look at them as family now on what we're building. And, we make we make decisions together. We're not always going to agree on everything. And, we can have some heated conversations at different times, but ultimately it comes back to the foundation that we both love this organization that we have. And we're trying to do the best for it, to move it forward, to give other people opportunities. And I think, going through 2020, which has been a very challenging year, shows really the value, which you look at the risk management, which is the life insurance, disability, multi-life, more, the insurance part of it, which our business at one point was down 40%. We made the quick decision that we will not lay off anybody, that Scott and I would take the hits as far as, income and stuff like that, that we're not going to put our employees out like that, that we're going to move forward and everything. And how quick that decision was? That conversation wasn't even 5 minutes. And that's kind of how I knew that once again, that just shows that we are so aligned in what we believe in the company and doing the right thing, and
wow.
and stuff. So, so.
That's good to hear. So just from if I was coming to you for advice and I was, thinking about leaving my career, which was a promising career in corporate America, or, maybe I'm leaving a career, just making a career move in general, but especially because a lot of times people in corporate are like, because they talk to me or ask me like, man, but I want my own thing. And I'll be looking at them like, man, you get 6 weeks vacation paid, you got benefits, you got a great salary, it's, what are some things that if somebody came to you and said, man, Van, I'm thinking about leaving and doing my own thing, what are some considerations and some things that people should look at, whether they buying into a business or starting their own business?
Yeah. So Josh, first and foremost, I think that's the great question. But I think the one thing that you did mention, you talking about those guys getting 6 weeks and stuff like that. Ultimately, they don't make the final decision on their career, where you get to make the final decision on your career. So you have total control. But which the question that you asked me, advice, and I actually spoke about this at the School of Business graduation when I gave the speech there for the graduation. Personally, now obviously this is just my thoughts. Personally, I believe any young individual, I think it's really good to go into corporate America, at least for a few years. One, you get to have some, you get to build some relationships. They're investing in you, so you're learning more skill sets and how to operate in a business, which I think ultimately will help you. I think if individuals get that kind of background for 3 to 5 years and then they want to go out and do their own thing, I think it's more beneficial, because they appreciate what they had in corporate America, but ultimately understand they probably didn't control everything. And then if they go out into the business world, it's a different mindset, an employee mindset versus entrepreneurial, right? School teaches us how to be an employee. That's what school teaches us how to. The entrepreneurial is something that I think you have to learn. So you have to pull on other mentors and other people who've been down that journey. And hopefully you're not making the same mistakes that they made. But an entrepreneurial mindset is totally different than an employee mindset. And anytime someone comes to me, I just challenge them on that. Are you ready? Do you got the support of your family? Are you ready? Are you willing to go down the roads and do what it takes to be successful? Are you willing to give up some of that income that you're used to as an employee, understanding if you get this right on the entrepreneurial side, that it will be greater down the road, but you're not going to have all the things right now. So are you willing to give that up? A lot of people say yes, but I realize they're not really willing to give up anything. And I think you got to be willing to give up some things to be a true successful entrepreneur. Because there's a lot of people who go out and try to be an entrepreneur, but they're not successful. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, to truly be successful, I think you have to, you got to make some sacrifices, but more importantly, I think you got to have a support system. And I think that support system really starts with your family, skill sets that you have, good friends, and keeping positive people around you. And then ultimately looking in the mirror and saying, hey, this is on me. I gotta execute. So you gotta go in here thinking not 9.5, not 10 on a scale of 1 to 10. You gotta be 110, 120% sure there's no way that you can fail. Not saying it's not going to be speed bumps, not saying it's going to be setbacks. I've definitely had many setbacks in my career, but ultimately that you're going to be successful and stick with it.
Welcome to the Go Fish Village podcast. As a Chinese proverb says, give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime. At Go Fish, our goal is to teach individuals just like you how to build wealth through real estate. What about from a business standpoint? What are you looking at when you are buying into a business? Did you have a lawyer look at documents? Are you looking at certain financials? What other things are you evaluating?
Yeah, I mean, I think you gotta have fundamental belief that you're going into something that's viable, or there's the opportunity to grow it, right? Because what's the point of going into something that's not going to grow? I mean, that's failure, right? I mean, ultimately. So yeah, I mean, I think you gotta get other professionals. I mean, you being a business owner yourself, I think you quickly learned that you cannot do everything. That you got to bring other professionals in to have other expertise to help you out. You got to be able to trust them. Meaning you got to check some of the stuff that they say, and everything. But I think ultimately you got to have attorneys who look over legal documents. You got to have other financial people, maybe another set of eyes to make sure that this looks good. But I also think you got to have your own network of other professionals that you can run different ideas by to ensure, maybe they're not making the final decisions, but you want people to give you input on their thoughts, right? I mean, hopefully you're not sitting just making decisions in silo on, that, you got good people around you that can help you make solid long-term decisions. I always tell people, don't make short-term decisions when you're looking for long-term outcomes, right? And those never add up together, right? And if you're going to be making long-term decisions, you got to look at things that way. Hey, this is going to be long-term, and what are going to be some of the speed bumps or different things that could happen short-term, but ultimately, can I get to my ultimate goal? But if something looks like a dog, it has fleas, it probably is one, I would say run away from it. If something's not growing, why would you even go into it? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're starting to already see things, retract and everything, why even go into something like that? Unless you see somewhere on that platform that there's an opportunity where your specific skill sets can grow that. And, when I came into to the business that I am in now, brokerage, yeah, it's fine. I don't know how much that's really going to grow. I looked at the venture that I went into, like, look, they're not even taking advantage of the best opportunity here. And that's the career side, being able to grow it with other advisors. With ultimately, if you create a culture and you build that the right way, ultimately you get to sit back and just think about things strategically. And other people are helping you grow the business, and you're giving other people the opportunity. So I think that's a huge aspect as as we move forward. And I'm pretty excited. So I look at it, and I can't really get into this until January 1st, but we just hired a young man of color who's going to be joining us at the top, not equity yet, but we're going to be giving him a runway over the next 3 years. If he comes in and do very, very well, that he'll come in and after 3 years, he has the opportunity to be an equity owner with Scott Hunken and myself. And this is something that we ultimately been looking for as far as succession planning and everything. And so I'm pretty excited about that, but I'm very excited that it's going to be a person of color that's coming into that should be coming in here. And we'll be looking forward to making that announcement toward the end of the year and as we move into 2021. So Hunken Ewing Financial Group is going to be getting a little bit more diversity at the top.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. How do you go about building a team as someone who has kind of made a career off of because to me, I always ask in interviews, what's the definition of a leader? And my definition is always somebody that can make other people better. So, and team building is hard. Some people think, oh, you the boss, you don't got to do no work. It doesn't work like that. Just hire somebody to do it for you. My friends be like, oh, that's a tax write-off. No, it doesn't work like that. For you, what's the secret to team building? What's your secret?
Yeah, I think you hit it on. I think it comes down to, can you help other people be better? And the one thing I say, look, there's talented people that I talk to all the time that tell me like, hey, they'll be great in my organization. But I look at our organization, I was like, look, we don't have the resources. I don't think you're the right individual. So one, I think you got to be able to build culture. The only way you can build culture is build it with good people. I think ultimately at the end of the day, you being a leader, people got to see that you're willing to do the things necessary to be successful. So we just went through an office move in the middle of COVID because we used to have an office that was probably too much square footage for the way the business was going. We got a subleaser in there and we moved. Hey, I'm the guy in there, packing boxes, doing everything. Like, yeah, we hire people to ultimately do the move. But ultimately, I got to bring people in and they got to buy into what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So, when I came into what was Hunken Financial Group, I was building my book of business, building out the investment arm and everything. I was doing that myself. I still do that myself, not to the set degree, because a lot of people can do the risk management part. So now I'm concentrating more on the investment, the portfolio construction and everything. I'm building that. But at some point, I'm going to turn that over to someone as well. But people know that, like, hey, on the weekend, I'm sitting here working, mm-hmm. Late at night, I'm sitting here working. You got a problem, give me a call. I got a guy who's going through a tough relationship at home right now. I'm like, hey, if you got anything that you need to talk about and you can't talk about your immediate family, give me a call. I'll pick up the telephone. Let's sit and talk about it and everything. Everybody needs someone to talk to. So kind of like what you were saying, you just being the boss, someone's like, oh, it's a tax write-off. You just go hire someone. Yeah, you can go hire someone, but they might not be building it the way that Josh wanted it to be built.
Yeah. Because
you're building your brand. And at the end of the day, you got to protect your brand to the end of how you want it. So my whole thing is, we want to have that culture where people believe that, I tell people like, I'm not going to hire someone that I wouldn't invite you over to my house and I can't introduce you to my wife and my kids. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's first and foremost. So the integrity, being a hard worker and everything, because as soon as my wife meets you, she's judging you, not on who you are as in, but she's judging you like, are you going to be good for our firm? Like, is this person a hard worker? Are they going to be helping the firm grow? Or is this someone just, sitting here talking and can't execute? And believe me, she sees through people very quickly, and she'll ask me those tough questions, never in front of them, always behind closed doors in a private setting and everything. So, but ultimately, I think people join us and want to be with us because ultimately they believe that we're going to help them get to where they want to be. And I think your phrase of what you said of a leader, I mean, that's just right on. I can't say any better than myself. Leaders help other people get, what they want, help develop them to what they want to achieve. And if you can do that along the way, think not only your family, but think of how many people in your community that you impact, right? And that is part of your legacy.
How big is your firm now?
We got about 26. We got about 26. Advisors. It's going to be a lot larger. We've had more, but we had to take a step back once again. Not having some of the right people on the team in leadership that we had to let go. So 26 advisors. When you look at it, revenues of over 7 million, about over 200 million of assets under management, but steady growing. And we think the team is right now for growth. And I would have to say, over the last 12 months and going through COVID, has probably built a larger belief in the journey that we're about to take. I think that we've been able to step back going through what we went through here in 2020 and kind of really look at the business. And I think we're built for exponential growth as we come out of this pandemic.
So outside of the career, you've been an individual that's always made it a point to be involved in the community, especially when it comes to giving back to Howard. I've noticed that ever since I met you, whether it's with the softball outing, now you're doing the golf outing you got coming up. You taking us to a world-class golf facility in Olympia Fields. And then, obviously your work with the School of Business, which is phenomenal. What is it that motivates you to give back?
Yeah, great question. So right before I answer that, let me plug that. So, June 21st, 2021, Olympia Fields, Howard University School of Business, going to be first golf outing that we're going to do. So more to come on that. And our guy here, Josh Mercer, has said that he's willing to help and help us build this to success. So
you put me down. You got. I'll be there. I'll be there. Golfing at least. That's at minimum. You count me for $1,000.
Well, it's going to need to because the foursome's going to be like 4,000 and everything. But it's going to be an experience like no other. Not just the golfing, but the whole the whole experience there. But I would say I don't. So give it back to the community. Once again, a guy who came from modest beginnings, and I like to think that my journey is not an uncommon journey, at least how it began. Not with, tons of financial resources, but the love of a family, the belief from a family that put education first. And ultimately, my parents and grandparents instilled in my two sisters and myself that if we put our mind to anything, that anything can be done. That was my belief. So, we wasn't, rich, financially and had very modest resources, but we did have a belief in ourselves. So to me, it comes down to, giving back is all about helping people understand that there's opportunities out here, but you got to know which opportunities to go after and you got to be prepared. And the first part of being prepared is having a support system. So I think first and foremost, if we can offer people some type of support system or someone that they can speak to. Like when I was going through high school and going through, I don't remember our high school telling me about Howard University, me growing up in Champaign and Champaign Centennial High School. But there was one individual who had graduated a year before me that she went to, Howard, and, talking to her to kind of give me that exposure. Now, while I couldn't go there, it was years later that I was able to attend Howard. I had a little bit of exposure from her. So if we can get people greater exposure to things at a younger age and help them be better prepared because they're running towards something. If you don't have exposure to different things, what are you running for?
Yeah, it's like you're going in circles.
Yeah, what are you preparing for? Mm-hmm. Because at some point in life, starting in high school, you as a young adult has to start to make decisions of where you're going to go. And I think that is critical for us to be jumping in at this point, especially as African-American men. And as we know, there's way more women at the colleges than it is men, and then there is a huge discrepancy or a huge delta with African American women and African American men who are in college. So while I'm willing to help anyone, more of a special focus is actually on African American men. And if someone gives me a call and say, hey, we got this young man who's thinking about going to school and everything, I want to have a conversation. Not all of them are going to go to Howard. Not everybody wants to go to Howard, and I get that. But the first thing I'm going to ask them is like, hey, tell me a little bit about your background. How you doing in school? And when I start hearing these low grades and running away from math and everything, I'm not going to put it nicely to them. Like, look, you got to do better. I was just talking to a young man a week and a half ago that I knew his mom. She worked at East Bank, club in like the nails place when we used to get manicures and pedicures and stuff like that. So I know her, and it happened to be her father and my father actually know each other. So I've heard about her son. Her son's a senior in school, and he was telling me, good grades, but he was telling me about, his SAT scores, and he wants to go to Howard. He wants to get into the business school. And I'm like, look, you got to take that test over. I was like, you are competing against individuals who's going to come in and have a perfect SAT and they look just like you. Mm-hmm. Or are they going to have, 1500, 1510 and different things like that? And I was like, you got to take it over. And I was like, look, people are going to look at the best score, not how many times you took it. They're going to look at the best score. 2, if you really want to go to Howard, say you don't get into the business school. But if you really want to go, still go through the general education route. You can always transfer into business school. What you've done in the past does not necessarily dictate your future, but at a certain point, you got to make some decisions on, do you want to be successful? Are you willing to do what's needed? And are you going to surround yourself around positive people that's going to build you as a better individual and give you opportunities? Well, a lot of people don't know that unless they meet people like Josh Mercer. They got to meet that young brother who's out there doing those different things, who's out in the community, who's had these experiences and only going to get better. They have to see individuals such as Josh Mercer, who has 2 young kids. You're talking about, a supportive wife, a supportive family who's doing many different things. I know you laugh, but I look at you. You're a young, successful professional, African-American brother who's doing good things, is only going to get better. Only going to get better. And that's a story that needs to be told. I'm an old guy. I'm 51, man. I'm just trying to keep my boys on the right track and expose them. But man, when I look at it, I look at you as individuals who's the future that people need to be speaking to, and that needs to be involved. And part of my responsibility is as I run into this and I hear from their parents and everything, hey, you need to reach out to Josh Mercer. Did you look up to this? Yes, you need to be on that Howard trip that the local Howard University chapter does. And they don't just do it for Howard. They expose other people who look like us to the other HBCUs out there. And I think that's phenomenal. But we got to do more of it. We got to do a lot more of it. And you know what? Right now is the best timing. Howard is getting more donations than any other time in their career because of what's going on in the country. The polarization. We're more divided than we ever been. But I also say that we're still a country that's more together than we ever been. Meaning that in America, I still think no nation or no individual is perfect. There's still huge opportunities here. And there's huge opportunities for people who look like us. They just got to be prepared.
I couldn't agree more. I was one of those individuals that got to Howard and wasn't in the school of business. I was just taking classes in there. And I think you just had to have a GPA over 3.0. And then after my sophomore year, I transferred over to the School of Business. So, but it a lot starts with your mindset, and, what are you willing to sacrifice to reach your goal, and exposure, of course, is key because, when I was a teacher, Sadly.
Hold on, whoa. I didn't know you were a teacher.
Yeah, I taught in Chicago public schools for 7 years.
Oh, that's awesome. See, man, your story gets even better.
Yeah. I was a teacher up until we went on strike in 2012.
Okay.
And then that's when my mom was like, because I was getting married that same year. So my mom was like, with CPS going on strike, you should think about opening up an insurance agency since you want to have a family. You're going to make more money in the long run. Long story short, I taught for 7 years and then I bought the insurance agency and been here for the last 8. So yeah. But what I was going to say, when I was a teacher, man, sometimes you see students, man, it'd be like The Walking Dead. I'd be like, yo, what's up? You know what I'm saying? Like, like you're skipping class, you're coming to school high, you're not applying yourself. And I'm not saying it's the student's fault because it's other factors that were at play, but it's serious business. You can't say that you're going to go to Howard and you might have a 4.0, but if your GPA, but if that test score is rock bottom, you got to have some other stuff you got to bring to the table. And it's an unfortunate truth because you are competing against the best and brightest, not just in your school, but all around the world are trying to get into schools like Howard. So yeah, before we close out here, man, because I know we've been on it for a while, and I know that your time is precious, man. I know how much you.
Hey man, I gotta get down here. My commitment, my son. We go over name recognition and math numbers on the weekends. So he's he goes to this private Montessori, and then he does Kumon. So my wife picks up 3 days a week, Monday through Wednesday, after a Montessori, and then they have a special teacher there right after Montessori on Thursday or Friday, and I pick up on the weekend. It's probably one of the most enjoyable times over the weekend that I have watching this guy grow. I mean, math and sciences, that, man. So
oh yeah, that's key, man, especially now. Got to get him into that coding as well.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have for somebody that's 18, the 18-year-old Van coming into Howard right now who wants to have an amazing experience, but also wants to be prepared for the next level?
Yeah, I mean, once again, I don't think that individual can do it all by themselves, and it takes a lot of us who's been on that journey. But I think that individual has to link up with individuals who already went there. So let's just say that person is going to Howard. Like, we're going to be given this golf thing. One thing that we're going to do with this golf event on June 21st, on that Monday, June 21st, out at Olympia Field, all the individuals who have accepted to Howard, we're going to give them an invitation to be out there so they can meet other successful Howard people and other individuals, so they can know some of these people as they begin that that journey. 2, I think when they make that decision to go to Howard, I think they need to do an honest assessment. Are you already prepared? Is your math and up to key, the calculus and everything? If not, hopefully you got a job over the summer, but go take at a community college, go take a math course or go take a writing course. What I see here is, and it's just shameful, and it's just not African Americans. The writing skills of professionals in the business world is just horrific. I mean, people write like they texting. It's like the lack of communication is just horrible. So if you're behind in that, I suggest people take a writing course and a math course before heading out there. So they prepare, do the work now. So when you get out there, 1, you're prepared, but 2, you're able to enjoy the experience of being out there, because you don't want someone showing up there and enjoying the experience so much that they out, meaning that they get kicked out. They can't come back due to their grades, right? So do a little bit of the work to be prepared for when you go out there, because like you said, when you're showing up to Howard, man, it's some right. I mean, you're getting the best. You're not just getting everybody in the city. I mean, in large metropolitan areas, you're getting people coming from high-end suburbs that they might be second and third generation that went to Howard. Are they parents went somewhere else and they're very, very successful and they want to come to this Howard experience because they grew up in that high-end, suburb that didn't look like people like them, and they show up, but man, they sharp.
Yeah.
Like sharp.
Yeah.
I mean, so like you got to be prepared. You got to bring your A game. So I'm just telling people, be prepared. Do an honest assessment. Have conversations. Like, look, this is where I am. Okay, great. Let's get this done before you even show up. There. In DC. Let's be prepared. And so I think it all starts with being prepared, and then understanding once you get there, get some mentors and get some positive people around you that's going to give you the real deal, because you got to stay there now. Okay. You got to stay there now. And so you got to do the work. And I think now at Howard, if you're doing a really good job, and even though you might have some financial shortcomings, I think there's enough alumni and enough money that's been given to Howard that we can help that individual stay in. But if you're an individual that's there, that's barely getting by doing C work, not too many people are going to want to help you.
Yeah.
Not too many people want to help you. People want to help individuals execute it, not people just there going through the motions. And, there's a time to have a good time, and there's a time to get down to business. And you got to be able to manage your schedule. I call it time management. Yeah. You need to show up on campus, and you need to be working on your time management skills. And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to, being prepared. And if you don't have it necessarily in your household, that is not an excuse. There's enough people out here. You got to ask the question. Ask someone, hey, do you know a Howard alum? Do you know someone that I can speak to, that I can reach out to? And I'm sure, Josh, if somebody reached out to you and they said they were going to Howard, they thinking about Howard, I'm sure that you would give them, at least a half an hour to at least discuss it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure.
They got to get on your schedule now. I mean, you just can't, text you and expect you to be ready within, 20 minutes, but you're going to schedule them sometime out that you're going to give them at least 30 minutes. Absolutely. And then with that, you're going to give them some other people that they can talk to. And to me, that's the greatest value, starting a relationship, starting your network, because it takes a village. It still takes a village.
Yeah. So 100 years from now, what are we saying about Van Ewing?
Hey, man, hopefully my son and grandkids are doing good things. And to me, that's the greatest legacy, that we can leave behind. To me, it's about, watching my boys, grow up and be, truly good people in the community, but also seeing, Josh, people who look like you and me, especially African-American men. Obviously, we want all people to be successful. I think a community of all people being successful, rising tides, rise all, ships and everything. But I just hope that, that us as people of color are taking advantage of some of the opportunities. And I know a lot of people think that there's, they haven't been given opportunities, but I would also say, are you ready and are you prepared for those opportunities? So I think I just hope that our communities are doing a lot better. People are investing back into our communities, but most important, people are taking advantage of some of the opportunities that they are given. I see a lot of people that piss a lot of opportunities away. And it's just because they're not prepared, or maybe they haven't been exposed. There's many different factors that go into it. It's not just one thing. But yeah, ultimately, man, it's like, V3 and Wolf, I want them to be good people, to have families, them to be successful, and, them to raise, positive families. And I hope that they are giving back. We're teaching them to, give back, to respect all individuals, no matter what. And that they're lucky individuals that they're being exposed to a lot of different things. But, you have a greater responsibility when you have some of these resources. You have a greater responsibility to share them, because just keeping everything yourself and not giving back to your community, to me, that's not success.
Absolutely. Van Ewing, managing partner, co-general agent, Hunken Ewing Financial Group. Protect, invest,
achieve.
So, if you want to consider a career in financial services, definitely go to hunkenfinancial.com and get more information. But Van, you've been a great guest. Thanks for coming on. I truly appreciate you dropping gems as usual.
And all I had to say is, Josh, man, from the bottom of my heart, man, really appreciate, what you're doing. And once again, like I said, you're the generation coming behind, and we got people like you leading it, brother. Hey, man, we in good hands. We are definitely in good hands. So keep doing all the positive things that you're doing, and I look forward to reaching out to you and you helping us make this golf event very successful. But it's going to be so much more than that and everything. So appreciate you, brother, for everything you do for you and your family.
Thank you for joining the HU Movemaker podcast, where we highlight folks that have contributed to the Howard legacy at the highest levels. To hear more interviews or purchase merchandise, please visit www.humovemakers.com.